so this is a talk for all the non-technical people here. We hear all these like jargon terms thrown around. You have no idea what it means. I'm going to explain SSL to you and why you should give a fuck in 5 minutes. But I haven't actually practiced this yet, so in the immortal words of Bill O'Reilly, fuck it, we're going to do it live. So whenever we talk about encryption, we always have Bob, Eve, and Alice. And Bob and Alice are trying to exchange messages, and Eve is trying to intercept it, right? Eve is the eavesdropper. So we're going to talk about Bob and Alice trying to exchange a message, right? Pretty straightforward. So in classic crypto, you have a key, some sort of secret, a password, a big long string of numbers. You take your plain text, you encrypt it, you have your ciphertext, you send that across, you use the key on the other side to decrypt it, no problem. The problem is, how do you get the key to each other? If you live next to each other, it's fine, but if you're on the internet, you're kind of fucked, because Eve is sitting there somewhere in the middle trying to intercept that key. And so the key itself is a message. You need some way to exchange information with someone that you've never talked to before, but you have to get a key to them in the first place. So we have public key crypto, right? And we're not going to go into a lot of detail on this, but basically you have two big numbers. They relate to each other in some way mathematically. And you have 3 different operations, or 4 different operations you can do: encrypt, decrypt, sign, and verify a message. So Alice makes a large random number. She then puts it into a key generation program and ends up with a public key and a private key. And we'll go over what you can do with those 2 things real quick. The idea is that they relate to each other. The public key you give out to people, so everyone should know your public key. So Bob says, hello Alice, he encrypts it with Alex's public key, crypto text comes over here, Alice uses her private key to decrypt the message, right? And then when you're doing signing, it's sort of in reverse. Alice sends a message, she signs it with her private key, sends it off, and it can be verified with her public key, right? So now you know that like you can get the encrypted message by using the reverse, and you can verify it using the forward, however you want to think about that. So now we just have a system, we have a public key and a private key, and we have, and we can use those 2 separate things. And you can get your public key out by like publishing in a newspaper, right? Any way that you can use to get the public key out, you can get it. As long as everyone has a good copy of everybody else's public key, you're fine. So you go to Amazon and you want to buy something, you know, that you would normally buy on Amazon, like uranium ore, and but you want to like give your credit card number over in a way that's safe, and so you're like, oh, I just need a copy of Amazon's public key. I'll get it out of the newspaper, but it looks like this, which is totally fucking useless, right? So we need a way to be able to automatically let the computer send us public keys so that we can verify that it's the correct public key, because I don't want to have to look at the newspaper and write down the public key of every website. So we bring in Ted, right? Ted is the trusted third party here. And the idea is that Ted's public key, you copy down a few select public keys, and Ted signs everybody else's public key so that you can verify it. You get their public key, you just download it. And so in your computer is this list of what are called certificate authorities. And these are Ted. This is Ted Nugent in your computer, right? And what Ted is doing is when you go to a website, you get a copy of their public key signed by this public key that you already have on your computer, and you verify it, and you know what's going on. So then when you go to buy your stuff, you click on the big lock, and it shows you that this identity has been verified, everything's encrypted, you're good to go, right? And so we've basically solved the problem of how to do worldwide encryption without any trouble whatsoever, right? Assuming that none of the certificate authorities, get hacked, which has just started to really happen. There's actually been a couple different times, both attempts coming out of Iran in the past year, where people are trying to issue fake certificates for things like Gmail, which should be a particular concern to people doing activism. You trust your Skype or your SSL encryption for Skype or for Gmail, and actually the government is actually snooping on you. But that'll only happen in the authoritarian regimes, except when you have lawful intercept devices that'll help you do this, where the government can compel a certificate authority to create a new fake key that your browser, from an existing certificate authority, and your browser or your email client won't even complain. So there are some ways around it. There's something called certificate patrol that you can put in Firefox. There's something called certificate pinning built into Chrome that will tell you if the certificate changed, right? So 2 different valid certs, one will be good, one will be bad. If your browser thinks they're both good, it'll tell you, hey, there's a new cert here. So what I'm saying is SSL is awesome. The sky is falling a little bit, but those of us, people like us in this room, are working on it pretty hard to try to fix it. And now you know enough to actually understand one of the nerdiest jokes I've ever seen, which is this thing. I'll just let you read it.